It is Bueller and Dodge, and on the phone today we have a living legend fighting in the UFC. It is none other than former champion Frank Mir. It's going down this Wednesday. You are fighting Todd Duffy on Wednesday night in San Diego, California. Hey, first, Frank, thanks for being on the show, man.
Yeah, no problem.
It's really an honor to have you. I mean, you've been in the UFC for a long time, former champion of the UFC, obviously looking to make your way back up that ladder. What do you see with this fight with Todd Duffy? What do you see that putting you in line for in the near future?
Well, UFC heavyweight division, you have to just get one win after another, and you move yourself towards a title shot. And so, Todd Duffy is just one more step in me continuing on to put together a win streak.
Now, both of you are coming back into the sport after some time off. You both had one fight. Both of you won your fight by KO, and now you're fighting Todd Duffy, who's basically saying that you're only taking this fight for a paycheck. I know you took some offense to that. What's different?
Well, I think he said that I didn't want to take the fight because I was looking for a paycheck, which I thought was kind of silly of him. I'm like, realistically, I get paid the same to fight Todd Duffy as I would if they were to bring in Verdum or Velasquez.
Right.
Yes. And so those were the fights I was buying for. I was trying to fight a fight that was somebody that was higher ranked up and Todd being unranked. So when he brought that up that I was just looking for a paycheck, that's why I didn't want to fight him, I was like, no, man, you are the paycheck. Hey, unless all of a sudden you think you're the number one or two guy in the division now, I wanted to fight the top guy. I didn't want to fight you because of you haven't done nothing.
Right. And both of you guys were, you came back after a while, and both of you had one fight that you both won, and you won by KO. What changed for you? Because you did have 4 losses in a row, and then all of a sudden you come back to fight Bigfoot Silva, and boom, KO. What changed in your training, or what was it, your diet? I have no idea. You got to tell us.
Well, actually, the time off, I just healed up a lot of injuries. One thing, my wife was making jokes to me because, I tried going to a yoga class with her after the loss. And she's like, well, why don't you try to get flexible, move around? And so I went in there with her, and about 10 minutes in, I'm just sitting in the mat, cross-legged because I couldn't do certain positions because everything hurt. Putting my hands on the ground, I had a stabbing sensation here, and I'd sit there, I'm like taping myself up, I'm looking like I'm getting ready for a fight. And so afterwards, she's like, I think you just need to take some time off and get some baseline health. Just be able to move around. She goes, you can't even hold a push-up position for more than 10 seconds without complaining about something hurting. And so taking that year off, I went back to the gym and rehabbed and just started off slow and gave myself the opportunity to improve without having to worry about, I only have 8 weeks to have to get ready for a fight. And then the other improvement was really just working on my boxing. A new boxing coach, Angela Reyes. And so going to boxing gyms that are and sparring with professional boxers in boxing, not trying to keep the mindset of, this is MMA, I'm going to do MMA. It's like, well, no, if you want to learn a certain art, just clear your mind and learn the art and don't hold back, thoughts.
What's your favorite yoga position?
I was pretty bad at all of them. If I was facing dog, I couldn't do it. That should piss me off so much. I was sitting in a room full of soccer moms. It wasn't like I was in a room full of elite athletes. They're all holding this position. All for 1 or 2 minutes. I'm sitting there, and my shoulders are searing. I could feel the pains in my wrists from all the damage of hitting things, and I'm just like, and so I'm just sitting there looking at my wife, and she's like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "What's not wrong? Everything hurts."
So do you have a little more respect for those soccer moms that are not athletes now?
Well, yeah, but mostly because of just how it just was such an indication of how unfit I was.
Right.
Just so many miles. It was like a car that I was like, man, I need a tune-up bad. So when I went back to the gym, I just kind of went back with that mindset. Like, all right, I'm not in here to try to lift heavy weights. I'm not trying to do this. I'm just trying to be able to, I want to be able to do pull-ups, push-ups, jump on top of things, move around. And then, and of course it was a very slow process. It doesn't come overnight. And then gradually, within about 6 to 8 months, I started seeing it where I could go into the gym and train and wasn't changing my training programs to accommodate my injuries. And that's how I had been for the last couple of years. I'd walk in and people were like, we want to do this, we want to do that. I'm like, I can't do that today. Why don't we do this?
So after your fight with Overeem, there was talk, you even said that you had a sit-down with the Fertitta brothers, and you talked about retiring and possibly just going into broadcasting. What changed that made you want to go ahead and rehab and get back into the fight game?
Well, my wife had come to me, and and obviously that's why I was like, "Hey, look, this should move this direction." And she was like, she felt after watching other athletes, and she's like, "Look, I'm watching and seeing other athletes who retire young, and I see them spaz out." She's like, "I don't want you, in 5, 10 years from now, thinking maybe you hung it up too early." Right now, obviously, I understand you're coming off 4 losses. Why don't we just take time? Why don't you just go to the gym? We're going to do the whole just let's just be fit again, and see how you feel in a couple months. And she was right, just kind of putting it on the back burner and not, she was, you could think you're retired if it makes you feel better, and just, push yourself forward and then see how you feel. And eventually, all of a sudden, like as my fitness came back up, the curiosity to walk in there and fight again came back, because it wasn't a forced issue. It wasn't like, I have to get in there and do this. I removed that element from my mind.
That's really cool, man. It's good that she's so supportive of you and really, really helped guide you in the right direction. It's a good thing to have at home. Good base for you.
Yeah, I think that most professional athletes, we can kind of be extremists. So I think having a wife to try to keep an eye on you is it's a bonus.
You got to have somebody level-headed. Now you
kind of looking from the outside, going, I don't think this is the best idea.
Yeah, you trained with Todd Duffy before, right?
Yeah, we had trained in the same camps before. Same coaches, same teammates.
Is that weird?
At first, I thought it was, just because I thought it was an average guy, a pretty cool guy. I never would have had anything negative to say in his direction. And then when I heard he had called me out on social media, and the way he went about it actually irritated me. I helped him through the fight. It's facilitated.
So how do you think that's going to play out in the octagon? Obviously, you have some previous knowledge of each other.
It's hard to tell. I haven't trained with him for 3 years. He hasn't trained with me in the same amount of time. So who knows, what he's improved on. He doesn't really know what I've improved on. And so it's not really, it's not going to help out all that much. Had we been in a camp together, up until a couple months ago, and then had to separate because we knew we were fighting each other, that might have made more of an issue. But the fact that we had just, crossed paths in the past, not so much.
So it's not like his secrets and he knows yours type stuff?
No. Well, I know a few things about him mentally that I don't think he's able to change. And so I'm pretty sure those are going to come out. But I don't think those would have really factored in. It isn't like it's a surprise. I think most people, if you watch his fights and you watch his success and you watch his failures, can pinpoint where his chink in his armor is.
All right. Well, it's going down this Saturday. Before we let you go, we got one more question for you. Oh, I'm sorry, Wednesday. Dumb, an idiot. I'm so used to Saturday fight cards. Before we let you go, man, we got one more question for you. Something that we ask all the fighters that we get to interview. And go ahead, Dodge.
All right, Frank. It's who's going to win in a fight: a bear with machine guns for hands and feet, or a pterodactyl that poops chainsaws?
I had to go with the pterodactyl, man.
Pterodactyl that poops chainsaws. We've asked this question.
Keep away from.
We've asked this question to so many fighters, and for some reason it just sounds weird asking it to Frank Mir, and I don't know why. So Frank Mir is Team Pterodactyl. All right, man, that's cool. Again, it's going down this Wednesday, July 15th. It's happening in San Diego. It is UFC Fight Night, Mir versus Duffy. Frank, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us today, and best of luck on Wednesday.
Oh, thanks, man. Thank you, guys.